is fixed. All right. So today we're going to talk about trapezoids, and tomorrow we're going to talk about kites. Trapezoids are not parallelograms. And here's the difference. So a parallelogram has both pairs of opposite sides parallel. Okay, so that's a parallelogram. A trapezoid has only one pair of opposite sides parallel. The other two sides are not parallel. So that's what makes a trapezoid different. If we look at what their sides and stuff are called, I think I'm actually gonna go down. No, maybe not. Okay, so if you look at what the sides and stuff are called, the two sides that are parallel are called bases. The two sides that are not parallel are called legs. And then in a trapezoid, like this angle and this angle are called a pair of base angles, as well as this angle and this angle are a pair of base angles. Okay, so that's a regular trapezoid, what that looks like. So bases are parallel, legs are not parallel, and these two together would be a pair of base angles, as well as those two would be. Okay. Then I talked about this already, so we can go down here to an isosceles trapezoid. So an isosceles trapezoid is one where you have your one pair of parallel sides, and then the legs are congruent. And so on your cheat sheet, you'll see like properties for a regular trapezoid and then properties for an isosceles trapezoid. And there's more properties for an isosceles trapezoid. So this is what an isosceles trapezoid looks like. Do you guys have anything written on yours? Okay, so let's do this. If they don't have these two marked congruent, do that. If they don't have the bases parallel, do that. So, and this one is for the isosceles trapezoid. I should have said that. This is for the isosceles trapezoid. So these two are congruent, these two are parallel, and then you don't have to write this part, but notice that your two base angles here are congruent, okay? As well as your two base angles there are congruent. So make sure you have those marked too. One other thing that we're gonna know about an isosceles trapezoid is that the diagonals are congruent. So maybe off to the side, just so you can see it right away when you look at it, right? The diagonals are congruent. Okay? And then one more thing that I'm gonna have you write by your regular trapezoid that you guys have. So on your cheat sheet, you all have a regular trapezoid where these are parallel. Off to the side of this one, write that consecutive maybe I should name them or number them. Maybe I should do that. Let's do that. And then let's say angle 1 and 2 are supplementary. And angle 3 and 4 are supplementary. And that would be the case down in the other one also, okay? So these two are supplementary as well as those two. And the reason is these two are consecutive interior and these are parallel. Okay, so these two add up to 180 as well as those two do. And then if you look down here, that would be the case too. Like if you named this one 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, you could still say for this one if you wanted to, that angle 1 and 2 are supplementary as well as angle 3 and 4 are supplementary. Okay. Everybody okay with that? All right, so now let's look at the next page. So this is something we already wrote down, but if you have an isosceles triangle, your base angles are congruent. So again, these upper two along the one parallel side are congruent, as well as these two are congruent. Then we're not going to really look at 6.22, but this is the one that says your diagonals are congruent. So what that would mean is like QS right here would be congruent to RT right here. So QS would be congruent to RT, only if it's isosceles. Okay, so the first kind of question that you're gonna have is they're gonna ask you for certain angles. And this one asks us for this. Is this a regular trapezoid or an isosceles trapezoid? Isosceles because these are congruent, okay? Now, because these are congruent, could I say what this angle is? What would it be? 63, right? So if this is 63, what do we know about those two again? They're supplementary. So wouldn't X be 180 minus 63, which is 117? So that would be the measure of angle S. And that's something you can just type in your calculator. You don't have to show that. All right, now this one is asking us for angle L, which is right here. Is that one isosceles? It is, but you really don't even need that in this one. What do you know about these two? Supplementary, so wouldn't you just go 180 minus 40, which is 140. Okay. All right, now let's look at this. It says each side of the basket shown is an isosceles trapezoid. So this basket right here is isosceles, so these two sides are equal. It says the measure of angle JML. JML is this angle right here, and they tell us it's 130, okay? And then they say KN, which is this distance right here, is 6.7. And then they ask us for, or they tell us also that LN, which is this, is 3.6, okay? And what they're asking us to do is find the measure of angle MJK. MJK is this angle right here. So in this particular problem, these two distances don't matter at all. But if this is 130, what would that be? 50, right? Because these are parallel, and these would be supplementary. So angle MJK is just going to be 180 minus 130, which is 50. Okay. Then if we go to our next one, down here, it's the same figure. It says, again, it's an isosceles trapezoid, so these two would be parallel. These two would be congruent if it's isosceles. And they tell us that angle JML is 130, so that's this again. And then they say that KN, which is this, is 6.7, and that JL, which is this whole thing right here, is 10.3. Okay, so if that whole thing is 10.3 and KN is 6.7, what they're asking us for here is this distance right here. Okay, one of the things I talked about here is that I just want to fix this real quick. This is 10.3, okay? One of the things that I talked about is that the diagonals are congruent if it's isosceles. So if this whole thing is 10.3 and this is 6.7 and you need to find x, shouldn't this one also be 10.3? So do you guys get that you could just go 10.3 minus 6.7? And that would be, what, 3.6? So that would be MN. So on this one, you don't need at all this angle. So that's kind of there just to confuse you a little bit. All right? Okay. Now let's go here. It says again, we have an isosceles trapezoid. So these two are equal, these two are parallel. And the measure of angle FGH right here, actually let me check. That angle isn't going to matter again in this one, so I'm not even going to write it in. The reason I know that is they're asking me for a side. So angle's not going to matter. FI is right here, and that is 9.8. EG is 14.1, and that's this whole thing is 14.1. And they want IH, which is right here. Isn't that just like the last one, right? So if this whole thing is 14.1 and this is 9.8 and we want the rest of it, we would just go 14.1 minus 9.8, which is going to be 4.3. Okay, so that angle didn't have anything to do with that one either. All right, now let's go here. It says to save space at a square table, cafeteria trays often incorporate trapezoids into their design. If WXYZ is an isosceles trapezoid, so again, parallel, parallel, congruent, congruent, and the measure of angle YZW, YZW right here is 45, and WV is 15. WV is 15. That's this distance right here, okay? And VY is 10. VY is right here, that's 10. And they're asking us to find each measure, okay? So the first one they're asking us for is for angle WZ, which is right here. You know what that would be? 45. Because it's isosceles, these two angles are equal. Very good. Because it's isosceles, those two angles are equal. Okay? Then they ask us for angle WXY. WXY is this angle right here. How could I find that one?
180 minus 45.
Yep, these two add up to 180. So you would just go 180 minus 45, which is 135. And that would be our answer. Okay. Then they ask us for XZ. Okay, XZ is this whole diagonal. What do you guys think?
It would want to be 15 and 10, like 50.
Yes. This one would be 10 because these two pieces end up being equal and these two do. So yes, this one's 25 as well as that one's 25. Good. Right. And then they ask us for XV. And XV we already wrote on here. So if it's isosceles, another thing we can always say is that this piece and this piece are congruent, and this piece and that piece are congruent. So if you wanted to add that to your cheat sheet too, these two and those two would be congruent. Okay? So that last one, XV is 10. Now if we look at this one, it says the speaker shown is an isosceles trapezoid. And so if it's isosceles, remember that means these two are congruent, this is parallel to that. And they say angle FJH, FJH is this angle right here, and that is 85. Then from F to L, L is right here, F to L is right here, that is 8. And from J to G, J to G would be this whole thing, and that would be, that whole thing is 19. J to G is 19. And we have to find each measure. So the first thing that they're asking us for is angle FGH. FGH is this angle right here. Okay? Could I find this angle H here? What would that be? 85. Okay? Then what about these two? They equal 180. So we'd go 180 minus 85, which is 95, and that would be this answer. Okay. Then it asks us for LH, which is this, well, let's see here. LH is this right here. So this whole thing is 19. This is 8. What would that be? 11, right? So 8 plus 11 should equal this whole thing, which is 19. Okay? So this is 11. And then it asks us anything else? No. Okay. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about is, depending on the book, some books call this a mid-segment, some books call this a median. But basically what it is if you draw a trapezoid, okay? And these are your two parallel sides. If you found the midpoint of this side and the midpoint of this side and connected those, this is your mid segment, and it would also be parallel to those sides. It can be called a mid segment or a median. Our book calls it a mid segment, okay? So here's what the rule is. I wish this was turned the other way, so I think I'm gonna actually use this one. So if they asked you for this, and they gave you that this was 10 and this was 16, and they asked you for that, the rule is you add these two together, and you can either think of dividing by 2 or multiplying by a half. So you would add the two together, 10 plus 16, and then divide that whole thing by 2. The one thing you have to be careful of if you're putting that in your calculator, if you're adding these two together, you have to hit enter before you divide by 2. So it would be 26 divided by 2, which is 13. Okay, that would be 13. So you add the outside two together and hit enter if you're doing it on a calculator, and then either divide by 2 or multiply by a half. Okay? So here again, if this one was 15 and this one was 17 and you had to find that, you would just go half of 15 plus 17, or 15 plus 17 divided by 2. And half of 32 is 16. Okay. So now let's go to this page, and it says HJ is 32 and LK down here is 60. Find MN. So again, I think what I'm going to do is the half times it. So I'm going to go 1/2 times 32 plus 60. So it'd be half of 92, or 0.5 times 92, which would be 46. Okay. Then if I look at this one, it says HJ is 25, LK is 50, find MN. So what I would need to do there is either add those two, hit enter, and divide by 2, or I could take half of 25 plus 50, which is half of 75, which is 37.5. Okay. Now, the ones that we did up here, they gave us the two bases, and we had to find the mid segment, and that's when we added them together and either divided by 2 or multiplied by a half. A second kind of question that you can get with this is they'll give you one of the bases and the mid segment, and you have to find the other one. Okay, the other base is what you have to find. So when I do these, you could write an algebra equation, but what I do is I start at the one base and I ask myself, like, do I add to get from 18 to 28? And yes, or do I subtract? And I add, and then I just look at how much am I adding? And from 18 to 28, I have to add 10. So then I'd add 10 again, and 28 plus 10 is 38. And that would be your answer. And you always start at the base, whether it's on the top or the bottom. So if I'm doing this one, I start here. And you're either gonna add or subtract from 19 to get to 12. What do you have to do? You have to subtract 7. So 19 minus 7 is 12. So then you would take that 12 and subtract 7 from there. 12 minus 7 is 5. So that would be our answer. Okay. Then, if we look here, like here's 86, here's 72. We start at the base always, and it's going down, so that means you have to subtract. How much is there from 86 to 72? It's 14, so then we would have to subtract 14 again, and 72 minus 14 is 58. Okay, then if we look at this last one again, we start at the base. So I would go to my base and look at what am I doing as I'm going down. I'm subtracting. 66 minus 24 would give me 42. And then I would subtract 24 again. 42 minus 24 is 18. So that would be my answer for that one. Okay. Now we have one last page. Okay. So these are just regular trapezoids. We're gonna write in what we know. And then this is gonna be a combination of sometimes you're given the two bases, sometimes you're given the base and the mid segment, and you have to find the other one. So in this one right here, they tell us HJ is 14 and LK is 42, and we want this one. So do you guys remember what to do there? Add them and divide by 2 or multiply by a half. Okay, so we're gonna go 14 plus 42, which is 56, and then we could either take half of 56 or just take 56 divided by 2, and that's 28. Okay, now if I look at this one, it says LK down here is 19, TS is 15, and we want this one. That is where we use the shortcut way. So what do we do to 19 to get to 15? Subtract 4, and then we take 15 minus 4. What's 15 minus 4? 11. So that would be your answer there. Okay. Now here they have HJ is 7, TS is 10, and this is LK. So this is that shortcut way again. So from 7 to 10, you add 3, 10 plus 3 is 13. So 13 would be my answer. Okay. Then for D, we have that KL down here is 17, JH is 9, find ST, and that is where you do 1/2 times, or you add them together and divide by 2. So we're gonna go half of 17 plus 9 is 26, half of 26 is 13. All right. Now if I look at this one, this is just a regular trapezoid, and it says the measure of angle F is 140, and the measure of angle E is 125. And if it's not isosceles, these are gonna be different, so don't think that's wrong. And we want angle D. Do you remember what these two would be? Supplementary, right? So wouldn't X be 180 minus 125, which is 55. All right, so your assignment then is that, and we're gonna do 2 of them together. So copy that down. Everybody good on that? Okay, so we're gonna do 2 problems together from your assignment, and you can do those on the top of the page if you want to. So let's do 43 first. You can start your assignment with that and just remember to erase it. Or I mean, don't do them, skip them when you get to them. So, number 43. They give us a trapezoid that looks like this. And they say that this is Q, R, S, T, and PM. Okay. Then they also tell us in 43 that PM is 2x. QR is 3x. And TS is 10. And this is one we did not do one like. And if you guys noticed when I was doing these, what I did is I would set, to find my mid segment, I'd add these 2 together and multiply by 1/2. And this is the reason why. When I go to do this one, I'm gonna take my mid segment, which is 2x, and it's gonna equal 1/2 times this plus this. Okay? Now, when you go to do this and you go to solve it, one thing we're gonna do quite a bit in the second trimester of this class is we're gonna have a 1/2 in front of parentheses like that. And I don't like to distribute a 1/2 because then I have fractions. So there is a way to get rid of that 1/2 and then you don't have that anymore. And how you do that is you multiply that by 2. And if I multiply that by 2, I have to multiply the other side by 2. Now, 1/2 of 2 is 1. That's why I do that, because now this is just gone. And what I have over here is 2 times 2x, which is 4x. And over here, I have 3x plus 10. And then I can go ahead and solve that, subtract 3x, and I get that x is 10. Okay? And is that what they asked us for here? They asked us to find PM. So if they want PM, that is 2 times x. So what I would do is take this 10 and put it in there. So PM would equal 2 times 10, which is 20. So you have to try to remember to look at what is it that they want us to find. Okay. Then if we go, now we're gonna do number 44. Okay, so number 44, if we draw the trapezoid, it is QR, PM, PM, and TS. Okay. Then, in this problem, they tell us that TS is 2x plus 2, and that is the bottom right here. Okay, then they tell us that QR is 5x plus 3, and PM is 13. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is try to figure out what my x is. And I'm gonna set up my equation just like I did the one on top here. I'm gonna say that my mid segment equals 1/2 times this plus this. So 5x plus 3 plus 2x plus 2. Okay, then when you go to do this, you're going to right away, I'm going to multiply, let's see, what do I want to do this? I'm going to multiply this by 2. So then I have to multiply this by 2. The reason I multiply by 2 is these cancel. 2 times 13 is 26. And then when I combine like terms here, 5x plus 2x is 7x. 3 plus 2 is 5. And then we have something pretty easy to solve. So I'm going to subtract 5. And I get 7x is 21. Divide by 7. And x is 3. Okay. Now what we have is they're asking us for 44. They're asking us for TS, which is right here, the 2x plus 2. So if I go to do that, TS would be 2x plus 2, and then I just put that x in there. So I put 3 in there, so it'd be 2 times 3 plus 2, which is 8. Okay,